So yeah, we called it Parenting Legacy because we were really passionate about helping parents just leave a better legacy. You know, I think every parent wants to build upon what they were given and then leave a better one behind, and that was really exciting to us, so we felt like that just fell into our lap, that name, and we went with it. So I have a private practice where I get to help parents do that with their kids and also help their kids learn skills that they need as well. So what I want to do today is I want to start out with a quick just review. So when I'm talking to you, I know I've spoken to this group before, but I know everybody wasn't here last time I spoke. So I want to give a quick review of a few things so when I'm talking, it will make sense to you about what I'm saying, okay? So if I could, let me see, this is hard. Am I right? Abby, do you mind holding that board? This is my daughter, Abby. She's going to help me today. So what I want to do first of all is I want to show you real quick just 4 different approaches to kids, right? So on this vertical line, I'm going to put high expectations. Down here, low expectations. Over here will be high support. And then over here, low support, all right? So just for the use of time, I'll do this real quick. A parent who's doing low support, low expectations is doing a neglectful approach, all right? Because they're really not engaging the role of being a parent. Up here, high expectations, low support would look like an authoritarian parent. The example I like to give parents is the captain from The Sound of Music. He was really good at this, right? Like he blew a whistle, he had high expectations, the kids all came, they all looked a certain way, but the kids really didn't feel supported by their dad in that story, right? And then over here, high support, low expectations would be a permissive approach. So the thing you see in both of these approaches that's important to remember today is these are about power. So this is the adult has all the power, this is now the kid has all the power, okay? And so the problem with these approaches is healthy relationships aren't based on power, okay? Over here, high expectations, high support. Becky Bailey, who I've learned from, she calls her home approach loving guidance. Dr. Markham calls it peaceful parenting, whatever. The name isn't important, but the idea is I have expectations on myself and my kid, and I'm going to support myself and my kid to reach those expectations, okay? So it's all about building a strong relationship through connection. Why is that important? Because I want to be able to teach them the skills that I'm wanting to give to them as a legacy, right? And that's only going to be accepted. My influence is only going to be accepted if I have a good connection. Think about the people you're willing to learn from. They're people that you trust, that you feel like you have a good connection with, okay? So I wanted to show you that real quick. The brain posters, Abby, if you wouldn't mind grabbing those. And I want to just give you a quick look at the brain posters real fast. This will help you and your spouse at home, okay? So Abby, if you wouldn't mind switching to the red one. Okay, so when a kid's very little, like most of you have little kids, right? 0 to 18 months, the most formed part of your kid's brain is going to be the brain stem, all right? So this is, am I safe? The question the kid needs to know is, am I safe? So when the kid is screaming or crying and you pick up the kid is just wanting to know, do you have me? You know, am I safe in your presence? If the kid feels like you don't think you're safe, the kid's going to not feel safe, okay? So you've got to regulate yourself and then give that regulation to your kid, all right? So then the next phase, 18 months, I'm on to 4 years, if you can switch it to the blue. The blue phase would be the limbic system. Now all these weird emotions come online and the kid starts to then, yeah, you got it, that's right. And the question the kid is needing answered here is, am I loved? Okay, so no longer am I fearing for my life. I don't think I'm going to die if I don't get a third cookie, but I might be really disappointed, and I might think you don't understand how important that cookie is, you know? And so what I want to do here is answer that question through empathy. I get it. That third cookie would taste awesome, you know? But right now we're not going to have that, okay? We're only going to have 2. And if the kid feels like you feel them, like you get it, okay, then the kid can move on up to the next part of their brain development, which is the green one. Okay, so 4 years, prefrontal cortex starts being able to come online. About that, you know, these are all kind of just, yeah. So this part of the brain is what can I learn? Okay, so this is where you know your kid's here. If the kid has self-control, the kid's showing compassion, the kid's able to have empathy. So lots of parents get afraid when their kid isn't showing empathy after they've hurt their brother or sister. Well, that's a skill. Empathy is a skill. Kid's not born thinking about the other kid. The kid's born thinking about themselves, okay? So I've got to show them, by modeling empathy to them, how to care about somebody else, okay? When they're here, I'm going to see them more interested in solving the problem. Like, what can I learn? It's no longer personal. In the limbic system, it was all personal, you know? Now it's just like, what can we do to better the situation? Got it? Okay, thank you, Abby. And so a real quick model, if you could hold your hand up. I don't remember if I've done this with you before, right? Have I done this before with you? Okay. So if you hold this up, this is the brain stem right here. Okay, so this is am I safe? This is the limbic system. Am I loved? Fold that over. Okay, you see how it looks like a little brain, right? Okay, see? This is the prefrontal cortex. So your prefrontal cortex wraps over your limbic system. So whenever we get upset at home sometimes, the kids might say to me, Dad, you flipped your lid. Okay, so this is like a Dr. Siegel thing. You flipped your lid, and that means like I'm really approaching them. I'm taking it personal, and they can see by the feelings that. Okay, so today what we want to talk about specifically after giving that kind of synopsis is about sibling conflict. Okay, so if you have more than one kid, you have experienced this, all right? So I want to ask you first to do some reflecting upon your experience as a child. So if you had siblings, just think for a minute, how was conflict between you and your siblings handled? Okay, just think for a second, okay? And then somebody raise your hand, and I'd love to hear your response. Let's take a couple responses. How was conflict handled between you and your siblings when you were a kid? Yes?
We had to put our arms around each other and sit on the couch. And I was brothers.
Okay. So if you guys had a negative encounter, you then were told...
Talk about it, yeah.
Oh.
We would just sit there with our arms around each other.
It felt real genuine and authentic. It wasn't forced at all, right? Just felt so much compassion for each other. Yes, okay, great. What else? How was it handled for somebody else? Yes? I'm sorry, go ahead.
My family did the same thing as Mark, except for we held hands.
Okay. Okay, so instead of sitting on the couch with arms wrapped, you just held hands. And I assume in both these scenarios it's supposed to symbolize we love each other, right? Okay, so even though it just looked like a minute ago we didn't love each other, and now we do because of this thing. Okay, yes?
I think coming from a generation like back in the 50s and 60s, they didn't deal with it. Like we just siblings just fought it out and worked it out.
Ignored it completely.
Ignored it completely.
Yeah. So it was almost like you guys need to figure it out, and we just acted like it wasn't there. Even if it was brought to their attention, it was like, get out of here. Like, go figure it out. Yeah.
So they call that prison warfare. Yes. No, I'm just like screamed and threatened spankings forever.
Okay. Yes. Stop it! Come on! Yes. Love each other. Yes. Exactly. Everyone's going to get in trouble. Yeah, my dad would line us up and had a ruler, and he would wait till one of us confessed who did what, and then you keep getting your hands slapped with the ruler. Yep.
Well, so our family, we were pretty low confrontation, but when my siblings wouldn't be getting along, my dad would say, you're going to be going to each other's house for Christmas or Thanksgiving, you might as well get along.
That's right, yes, that's good.
Okay. Yes, let me then go on. So what messages do you think about what you guys just shared, what messages did you receive about conflict and about yourself through these encounters? So what messages did you start to get from these things? Do you mind speaking to that? Like, what message did you get from the whole?
Maybe along the lines of it didn't matter what was going on.
Yeah.
Like, just to stop and
Yeah.
make it go away.
Yes,
Just
yeah.
cut. I don't know. Just
Yeah.
I guess it would shut us up. I can see that as a mom too. Okay?
Yeah, of course.
It just would shut us up.
Well, and it also, what you're saying, it makes you feel better too as a parent, that just a minute ago they were looking at each other face to face, and now they're together side by side, arms around each other, and you can go, see, they are loving to each other. Yeah. Is that the same thing you felt with holding the hands kind of thing? Like it was, this conflict needs to go away, let's just be loving.
Yeah, but I feel like, we were never taught any kind of tools to
Yeah.
deal with the conflict. It was just like, hold hands, like each other.
Exactly. Yeah.
And for me, that caused more resentment because it was always, I was the oldest.
Yeah.
So it was my brother getting in my room or whatever, doing things, and we'd fight, and then I had to hold his hand and be like, well, he's the one that...
Yeah.
So what I hear you saying is, as the oldest, you felt like the brother was coming in, you wanted that conflict to get resolved, and really it was like, just get over it. Okay, get over it and just love him, right? How would you describe, what's the message you got in that experience?
Just that conflict happens, deal with it.
Yeah.
Like just figure it out.
Okay, so you're kind of on your own, even though you're a little child and maybe nobody's shown you how to do this, you're supposed to know it. Just go figure it out. Yeah. Okay, and what did you get shared in from yours?
Same thing, like figure it, figure it out.
Yeah. Like you've got this Christmas thing coming on, you're supposed to like these people, figure out how to get over this hurt, right? Yeah, okay, great. Okay. So it's important to kind of realize what messages our kids are giving and getting from how we approach it. So think about this, reflect on this. Did you see conflict as an opportunity in your life? So when it came to conflict with siblings, did you see it as an opportunity? No. I mean, okay, who? You did, you saw, what kind of opportunity was it? How did you?
I can get them in trouble at all races.
Okay, so conflict, you're saying, was an opportunity to rise in the hierarchy of the best kid. That is good. That's right. So you could, yes, that is good. How many of you felt that? I know I did feel that too. Yes. Okay, so conflict was an opportunity to somehow rise above the other, and in that, you're going to get more favor, more love, more attention, right? Okay, that's great. Okay, so what if I pose this to you? Yes, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, we were told to talk it out, and so we did see that as an opportunity
Yeah.
because we did actually grow.
Okay,
and
great.
we, bonded more through
Yes.
the conflict because we were forced to talk it out.
Great.
So for you feel like the conflict was an opportunity for you two to get to know each other better, learn some skills to resolve. Okay, great. Okay, so that brings me to my next question then. So how does conflict, I think conflict is an opportunity. A big part of you addressing your kids' conflicts with each other is I've got to embrace it. I've got to embrace conflict. I got to see conflict as an opportunity. Now, the problem with conflict, it's not always a positive opportunity, okay? So just like we learned, it's an opportunity I see, just in simplistic terms, for two things to happen. Either intimacy or isolation, okay? So either it's going to push us further away, or it's going to bring us closer together. I mean, think about even in terms of your marriage. It's the same kind of idea. I know Janice and Brent would attest to that in marriage, every conflict I have with my spouse or with my kids is an opportunity for me to push in or to pull away, okay? And it's really going to depend on what I believe about conflict, okay? So the problem is in our culture, typically at home and at school, conflict is seen as a problem to make go away. Okay? So when I was a school counselor, I was a school counselor for 7 years, and most of the time the solution to a conflict in class was you just move the kid across the room, So you try to limit that kid's involvement in the other kid's life as much as possible. It was rarely seen as an opportunity for those kids to actually learn some helpful skills for life. It was like, hey, we're here to learn math and reading, not conflict resolution. So if that kid's causing a problem with you, let's just separate you. But then what I saw that doing was every kid then saw conflict is so overwhelming. Anytime there was a conflict, it was like, what do we do? I don't know. I need to go. I mean, even fifth graders coming in up to you, what do I do? What do I do? And like, man, by fifth grade, I hope we've given you a lot of tools at the school on how to resolve these things, but we haven't. The only answer is either I reject the kid or I go get an adult to fix it. I don't know how to possibly repair this conflict, okay? So I wanted to give an example of, as Sarah and I have tried our best to embrace this idea of teaching our kids different ways to do conflict and to embrace it between them. One example I wanted Abby to share real quick. Abby, can you kind of tell them, she wanted to share what it is that we do that is helpful, in the conflict times, and maybe sometimes when it's not so helpful, okay?
Well, what helps me sometimes is, so once in a while, me and my brother will get in a fight about something ridiculous, like how you pronounce the name of a show. And we'll get like super mad at each other about that. And sometimes what helps me is whenever either my dad or my mom, sometimes they'll come up to us and we will each get to, like my dad will go, it's your turn to talk, it's your turn to talk. Because lots of times what happens is we'll end up running my mom and going like yelling over each other and being like racing each other and being really mad at each other. And so what helps is when my dad or my mom comes up and says, it's your turn to talk, your turn to talk. And then like if you interrupt, it's like you interrupted, it's his turn to talk. And what also helps me once in a while is they'll sometimes take us each, so then I can tell my mom my version of the story, and I can tell my dad, my brother can tell my dad his version of the story. So then we're able to both get our information out without it being like hurting the other one. And it's a way that we can think like, oh, and that's the way we can calm down instead of like keep doing conflict because we're right next to each other and then we find some part in what we're saying. And then we can calm down, and then we can go talk it out, and we're more ready, and we're more in the prefrontal cortex.
Thank you, Abby. Appreciate it. Yes. Well, and the reason why I wanted her to share that is you see what's happening. When I asked Abby what she wanted to share, what she's explaining is, in the conflict, I know my kids are here, right? Okay, so they're in the limbic system. How do I know that? Because they think they're against each other, okay? I only think that when I'm in the limbic system or the brainstem, okay? I know she's not in the brainstem because she's not physically assaulting her brother, right? So like she's physically attacking her brother, you see, I just need to create safety. I just need to get them safe, all right? Because obviously she feels so unsafe that she's got to attack her brother, right? But if she's up here, if it's just a verbal engagement and they're both demanding their way is right, that's limbic system, right? So if I come in, you can imagine, we'll get this in a minute, if I come in and demand my way is right, it probably shows them I'm here too, right? And all it shows eventually what I'm probably going to do is move them down here, where it's fight, flight, or freeze, you know? And inevitably, lots of kids will just either surrender that my way is right, they'll just give up, they'll do the sitting thing and acting like we all love each other, even though I don't feel like I do right now, you know? But I guess mom and dad are telling me this is important to do, you know? But what she's saying is I want to answer that question, am I loved, you know? Is your story valued, right? So I want to hear her story and give each one of them an opportunity to tell me that story, right? And then the idea is this, there's nothing magical in that, is I'm just moving them up to the prefrontal cortex. So then now, once I see their body physiologically less aroused through the conflict, then we can say, what's your goal now? Like, what is it you want to do? Let's go back and talk to your brother. And typically, what's great about that is what I've seen kids want to do is they want to go back and say they're sorry. It's not like, go back and say you're sorry. It's like, oh yeah, I want to go back and apologize. You know, they'll own it because that happens up in the prefrontal cortex. If I'm here, I can't own it because this is all about me. This is about us. Okay, so that's why it's important to know where the kid's at in the brain, what's the question the kid's needing to learn, okay? An example, too, about how conflict brings intimacy. I wanted to share this one situation that blew my mind because as we started doing this with our kids, you know, it was a much different way in which my parents did it. So I remember one day I went to Panera with Brennan, and Brennan was maybe 5, and I got, like, with my Panera card, I got, like, a free pastry. So I get this cookie, and it's a big, fat cookie, and I wasn't going to eat it. And I said to Brennan, you can have it. And so Brennan said, well, I would like to cut it in half. I want to bring half of it home to Abby. And I was like, what? I never would have done that as a kid. I would have rubbed it in my brother's face and I got that cookie. And like you were saying, it'd be like, Dad gave me a cookie and I ate it. And not only did when I cut it in half, I didn't cut it like totally half, like I'd messed up. I was trying to get it exactly right, but you know, that doesn't work. And then Brennan said, I want the smaller half. I want to give the other half to Abby. And I was just like, dang. I mean, it's not always that great, but it was in that moment just affirmation to me that there's something we're doing because there was a conflict here. Brennan knew Abby would find out. And Brennan instead said, I want that to bring us closer, not further apart, right?
And also what happened was I ended up kind of like, okay, I want to give you part of my cookie. That's not fair that you got an uneven amount. So then whenever we came home, I ended up breaking off the corner of my cookie and giving it back to him. So then we were even.
Correct. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about then, what can happen in these moments if I'm not in the prefrontal cortex, if I'm not coming into that moment with the idea that I want this to bring intimacy, if I'm coming to just stop the conflict, right? If I'm coming more of a referee than a coach. Like, do you understand that metaphor? So if I'm coming in to start throwing flags, you shush, you totally, if I'm doing that and I'm trying to pick out who's at fault for the conflict, what that does, it causes this thing to happen that is so common when you're in counseling, you're working with families, it causes this dysfunctional approach to conflict resolution, okay? And so it's just a simple triangle. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this before, but you basically get these roles in the conflict. You get a rescuer, you get a persecutor, and you get a victim, okay? So this is what I don't want to have happen to my family. So I'm showing you this triangle, and I want you to be able to talk to your spouses about this, to really be noticing, are we doing this? Because almost to a T, every time there's conflict, it's not getting resolved in the families because you typically see this happening. So the parents coming in, you know, the kid, normally the kid who is the victim is the one that runs to you and says, Mom, you won't believe what happened, yeah? And they're going to tell you how they've been persecuted by this person over here, and then typically the parent will be like, what did he do? Oh my gosh, you know? And they'll go off and start blaming. But then what happens with this, though, is they start to rotate these, you know? Because then that kid will feel like you're double teaming them, and that kid's like, I'm the victim now. Like, oh, and then mom will be like, oh, I feel so bad. That's right, let's get off him. He keeps getting in trouble. Let's back up. And it just keeps moving around to where mom is having to constantly move this thing to now maybe the mom is the persecutor, the kid's the victim, and then the other kid's like, mom is so mean, And so like it begins to, so you don't want to do that. Healthy conflict resolution is resolved by the two people who have the conflict resolving it, okay? So do you see how with the coach metaphor, we're all on the same team, right? If I'm reffing, it's like we're on opposing teams, okay? So I don't want to buy into that. My kid, because they're in the limbic system, thinks we're on two different teams. So I don't buy into that narrative. We are all on the same team, so I'm going to come in and coach you through this. And I'll give you some specific kind of words to say in just a minute. But it's important to be like, okay, I'm going to come in as a coach. I'm not here to designate fault, okay? I'm here to help you through this, okay? So another big idea I want you to get from this is we got to decide if I'm wanting these dynamics between the siblings to change, what really brings about change? Okay, you can see in these examples that we said here, when I'm resisting the conflict, wanting it to go away, if I'm really wanting it to change, what do you think resistance is going to breed in my family? If I keep resisting what is happening, what's going to grow from that? What do you think? It's kind of a trick question, because what?
I wasn't raising
Resistance will always breed resistance, okay? So if I'm resisting the conflict in hopes that I make it go away, I'm actually just teaching my kids how to resist conflict, okay? So instead of embracing conflict, instead of accepting the fact that conflict is happening, I'm resisting the conflict, wanting it to disappear, okay? So all I'm doing is modeling to my kids that when things happen I don't like, I just resist it, which was at the core of the conflict anyway, right? So something happened with the one kid, he didn't like what happened, so they resisted each other, okay? I want them to get into the habit of accepting each other, okay? So in this moment, you see things that way, I just want to accept that. So I don't need to change your perspective. It doesn't mean I agree with the kid's perspective. Okay, a lot of parents get hung up on that. That if I listen to the kid and I don't say, that's not how it happened, Johnny. That is not how it happened. If I don't do that, somehow I'm agreeing with it. No, that's not true. I'm going to accept that Johnny thinks that's how it happened, and that's okay. Johnny doesn't need to see it differently. I'm trusting the process, that if Johnny sees that I'm with him in this, that I get it. Man, if that's how you saw it, I could see why you get so mad. If you thought, Joey was coming up to you and just going to take that from you and never give it back, that would be so frustrating, right? So what I'm doing there, that's called empathy. I'm just empathizing with Johnny about his perspective of the situation. I'm moving him up to the prefrontal cortex. Why do I want him there? So then I can teach him how to resolve the conflict, okay? Does that make sense? Okay. So change comes through acceptance. Resistance will breed resistance. Acceptance will breed acceptance, all right? Okay, now this is the part. We're going to move to assertive communication, okay? So there's 3 different types of communication, okay? You've got passive. So if you're taking some notes, write down passive. You got aggressive. And then you got assertive, okay? So somebody describe me how you perceive passive communication. Can somebody describe that for me? What would passive communication look like?
Like, would you please pick up your toys?
Exactly, yeah. So Jerry, she said, would you please do that? Would you leave me alone? Gosh, that kind of thing. Or Mom, he keeps doing it. That's all passive communication. So when you hear it, it sounds very weak. It's based in fear, okay? If the kid is saying, I don't know how to assert myself in this moment, okay? Now, aggressive communication, you would think sounds like what? Do you have an example of that?
Just like yelling at each other.
Yes. Yes, exactly, right? Do it! Give it to me, right? Okay, so both of those forms of communication are based in fear, all right? So passive is, I don't feel like I have the power to change the moment, right? I'm afraid that I'm helpless and weak, okay? And you can see it in the nonverbals and the voice. Aggressive is, I have to win and be right, okay? So I will make this thing happen, all right? So assertiveness is different. It's based in love. And the reason why I'm saying it's based in love is because it's choosing to accept the situation as it is, like love does, and then choosing to guide the person where I would like them to go, okay? So an example of that would be when Abby and Brennan were very little and we first were practicing this. So Abby was, I think, maybe three, and Brennan was maybe 18 months, okay? So there was this time where Brennan was, 18, he just had been walking for 4 months or 5 months or something like that, and he was walking through the hallway just looking super cute, and Abby walked by him, and it looked like from our perspective, Sarah's and mine, that Abby was like, just like knocked him off and just like walked. So the first thing that came in me was fear, I'm thinking, what kind of kid am I raising? What is this? He's a helpless, cute little boy, and you just knocked him over. And she even seemed like she was smiling, Oh my gosh, psychopath. I'm like, all these like fearful thoughts are coming in my head. I have to stop this right now, And so typically the reaction would be, a parent is going to get up here, you get back here right now, And you see, like, my whole reaction is going to confirm whatever Abby was feeling in that moment. Like, it seemed like, I don't know what was going on, Abby, but it seemed like there was something, like she was feeling angry or something. Like, maybe she was, whatever it is, she's going to see from my reaction, I think she's a bad kid. Only a bad kid does that. And because I get so emotional, it's so big, it's so loud, because I can get big and loud, as you can tell, she's going to go, oh my gosh, I knew what I did was bad, but it looks really bad. And of course, kids don't separate their actions from who they are at this age. So she's going to go, oh, wow, this confirms some stuff. Okay, I was feeling kind of gross, I guess because I am gross, So what I did was I took a chance. This was the first time I was ever doing this, okay? So when you go do this, it's going to be fun for you to see how this works. But so I was just thinking like, okay, wait, I got to first regulate myself. I got to get myself to the prefrontal cortex. I can't see my daughter as the enemy. I am not opposed to her, okay? We are in this together. Okay, so what is it she was trying to accomplish? I don't know. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go straight to Brennan. So Brennan's laying on the ground. He's crying. I'm going to try to get to my spot of empathy. Dr. Becky Bailey talks about doing this. Go to the victim first. So I'm going to pick up the victim, which was Brennan. He was victimized. And I'm going to hold him and say, buddy, are you okay? I bet that was scary. Yeah, you just got knocked over. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to get myself to a good place. But what was cool about it was Abby, who had gone into her bedroom, now is coming out. And she's like, what's happening here? This is interesting. He's not yelling at me. She totally expected me to just come right at her, right? But instead she's like now curious. Because what am I doing? I'm modeling to her the very thing I want her to do next, which is empathize with her brother getting hurt, right? And then I did this thing, it's called positive intent, where I just assumed the best of my daughter. So I said, hey, Abby, it seemed like you wanted to get down the hallway, and the best way to do it was to knock your brother over, okay? So if you want your brother to move, this is assertive communication. If you want your brother to move, just say, excuse me, Brennan. And I bet he'll move out of the way. Let's try it right now. And so I held Brennan's head up. This was funny because I was just like, this is going to be fun. So I held this little 18-month-old head up and say, hey, Brennan, did you like it when she pushed you? No, you didn't like that? Okay, let's tell her. So I said, Abby, I don't like it when you push me over to get through the hallway. If you want to get through the hallway, just say, excuse me. Why did I do that? Because I want my 18-month-old son to know he doesn't need me every time to stand up for him. He can do this. He is strong enough. Now, at 18 months, he's not. But I want him to know I'm there with you until one day when you start doing this on your own, okay? And I want Abby to not see me as the strong one. Her brother's the strong one, right? Her brother can stand up for himself. So I gave him the words, said it to her, and then I said, Abby, can you do that? And Abby said, yeah. Okay, let's practice it right now. And then we just role played it. Let's come back and do the whole thing. Hey, Brendan, you stand right there. Abby, you walk by. And it was kind of fun to see the joy on Abby's face. Like Abby was like, oh, wow, I'm not getting screamed at. This is great. And then like maybe I'm not a bad kid. Maybe I was just a kid that didn't know how to get through the hallway and I thought it was easier to knock him over and that felt kind of powerful. Okay, maybe that's not a bad thing. I'm just learning stuff, right? And so then she walked by and said, Brendan, excuse me. And then I held Brendan's head like, oh, thank you for saying excuse me. And then she walked on by, right? And it was like, oh, that was so much better than what we had been doing, which was trying to resist the badness in my kid and trying to somehow, through yelling at her, make her better. I didn't understand how that worked cognitively, but it seemed to be okay at the time because that's what was done to me. So write this down. What I focus on, I will get more of. What I focus on, I will get more of. Okay, so if I'm focusing on like the lack of empathy my kid has, if I'm focusing on the inability my kid has to play appropriately with their sibling, if I'm focusing on all the lack, I'm going to see a lot of lack, right? And then that's kind of hard to ask my kid to do it differently if all I'm focusing is on all their deficiencies, all of their lack, right? I want to see the abundance in my kid, that I think Abby in that moment could do it better, so why would I need to go yell at her? I'm just going to invite her in to doing it a different way. Okay, so the main key on this, just to wrap up, and then I want you guys to have some questions, okay, is when I'm being assertive, I want my kids to first say what they don't like, okay? I don't like it when you did ... But so many parents are so ready to be like, great, yeah, just tell them to stop it. Just say, I don't like that. That's not assertive communication. It's going to lead to aggressive behavior eventually. The kids go, I told him like 5 times to stop and he won't, you know? And so eventually they're going to get frustrated. Assertive communication is, I don't like it, but then I would like you to do this. Okay, so I'm going to invite you into something different. An example of that with bigger kids was a teenager came to me, was so annoyed at how his little brother, when he was watching his Netflix show, would come in and keep shooting him with his Nerf arrows. And I'd be like, man, that is annoying. And then what do? I chase him around the house and I beat the crap out of him. Oh, wow, that's a solution. Do you think he wants you to go beat the crap out of him? He's like, no. What do you think he wants? I bet he just wants to play with me. Oh, that's interesting. So have you ever thought of just looking at him and saying, hey, I'm almost done with this show. I'll be done in like 5 minutes. You don't need to shoot me with the arrows. I'll play with you in about 10. And he's like, well, I guess I could try it. He did it, and it worked just like that. The other kid goes, oh, really, in 10 minutes? Okay, cool. And he just walked off. So like the idea is behavior is always telling you something about the needs the person has. So the kid was shooting the arrows, not because he wanted to get beat up, but because he wanted to connect with his brother. How many times does that happen? How many times did you do that as a kid where you were super annoying, I hear this all the time, to your older brother or younger brother or younger whatever, just to get them to notice you and then interact with you, right? And how empowering would it be for you just to say, hey, I'm really lonely right now. Could I connect with you? Because I really love spending time with you. That's where you want to get your kids to be, right? Is you want to have this idea where they can voice what they want, okay? So I would ask you, where do you tend to lean when conflict occurs? You know, kind of take a moment. Do you tend to lean towards passivity? You know, aggression? You know, passivity is I just wish this conflict would go away. You know, aggression is this conflict will go away. You know, so, or is it conflict is an opportunity for us to grow more intimate and close as a family? So kind of take that note, because typically what you'll have in a marriage, you'll have one tends to go one way, one the other way. Okay. What tends to happen too with moms, I've seen a lot with moms will tend to be passive at first until they get really, really annoyed. And then they'll move to aggression. And so what Dr. Markham would say is that raises really obnoxious kids. Because the reason why they're obnoxious is because they can push, and they know it's not really serious until you scream at them, you know? And so you're thinking, I'm trying to be sweet, stop it, you know? And so the kid goes, I mean, especially when parents count, I've heard this so many times at Chick-fil-A, where the parents would be like, I'm counting, okay, you know I'm counting. And you know the kid's going, yeah, I'll wait. That means I got 5 more seconds. That's awesome, you know? And so they'll do that whole counting thing, and you know everyone's watching this, like she's going to get really mad when he doesn't come at 1, you know? She'll count down. Okay, so notice where you tend to lean and where your spouse tends to lean. I must be in my prefrontal cortex. What I mean by that is I've got to feel safe and loved myself to see where I want to guide my kids. I cannot lead my kids somewhere if I don't know where I want them to go. Right? If my brain is saying, just stop it, I'm not in the prefrontal cortex. That's not guiding them, okay? All I'm going to do is eventually become the bigger, stronger person in the room and just demand my way over yours, which is what the whole conflict was to begin with, right? And so I don't want to model to them that the bigger, stronger person gets their way, okay? So I must be in the prefrontal cortex. I must remind myself I am safe and loved, okay? Where do I want to take them? Where am I guiding them, okay? Becky Bailey says something really funny. If a dead person can do it, it's not helpful assertive communication, meaning stop it. A dead person can do that. Don't do that. A dead person can do that. Right? So if you're actually wanting to guide them somewhere, say like, I want you to take that over there. Like a dead person can't do that. Right? So, yeah, or like, I would like you to say this. Excuse me, please. So just think to yourself, can a dead person do that? Then that's not helpful information. Okay? So what I would like you to do is think for a moment. Okay, we'll kind of wrap it up with this. Think for a moment, get a picture in your mind of what it could look like in your home. So with this information I've given you, how would you like your home to look differently in this area of conflict with siblings? So imagine this world that you want to live in where your kids, aren't conflict-free, but embrace conflict as an opportunity towards intimacy, okay? what does healthy and functional conflict resolution look like in a family for you? So could somebody, just a couple people, just take like two people who could just articulate that. When you take a moment and think about what would you like it to look like in your home? Anybody have a picture of that? Yes?
I'd like to have siblings that get along, like children
Yeah.
who get along, and then continue that relationship into children.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is you would like the siblings to able to use the conflict, but through the conflict, they get along well and they're friends for life. Isn't that right? No, that's actually what motivated us to switch it. Was I thought, I love my relationship with my brother and sister, but I would love it to be so much deeper and so much more intimate, right? And that's really something I'm really proud of and what Sarah and I are doing. I feel like that's happening. You know, and so we sit back and talk about it pretty frequently of like, did you see what they did? Like they're constantly not just deferring to each other in a passive way, but deferring to each other of saying like, I think your way is as important as my way is. So let's both try to get it. And it's not like they do that 100% of the time, but it's actually more often than not, you know, which is really cool. Someone else, a picture of what you would like it to look like in your home.
I would really love my children to solve their own problems.
Okay. So you're saying eventually get to that space where you feel like you've given them enough tools.
I'll be so happy
Yeah.
if I'm not needed.
Yeah. Well, it would be neat. Well, it is satisfying to look back. You're sitting on the couch, you see a conflict break out, and you're able to go, oh my gosh, dang, look at that. They just took care of that. Yeah.
When that's happening right now, I just don't move.
Yes.
I think if I say anything.
You try to act like they won't see. Hope you're invisible. But yeah, but eventually that is the goal. That's in this whole approach, that is the goal. That conflict resolution, you guys know, in marriage is super difficult. You know a lot of adults who cannot do it, okay? Because it is a skill. It is a really, really difficult skill to believe I am not against you, okay? That's typically what we do in our culture is I have a conflict with you, you're against me. It's either my way or your way. The ability for us to collaborate and see actually the linkage between us instead of just being so focused on the differences between us, you know, that's a real, real challenge, okay? I mean, obviously, politically and all types of stuff, right? So I'm asking you that question because that's what I'd love for you to do with your spouses. So I've given you this questionnaire, right? So if you look at the questionnaire, I've noticed the last few times I've talked that I've thought, man, I talked about some good stuff, but they'll have to like remember it all and go home and talk to their husband about it. But I thought this would be great. You know, so if you look here, I gave you some simple questions as talking points. So I kind of put the questions to discuss with your spouse before, during, and after conflict occurs, okay? And so I just gave you 7 that just popped in my head that I routinely would think in my own head, and then Sarah and I would have a debriefing later that night. So if you and your husband are wanting to change the dynamics, you know, I think this is where I see conflict as an opportunity between me and my wife to create more intimacy, okay? That the conflict that's happening in the kids, I think is an opportunity for her and I to get closer together on what we really think about how we want our kids to grow up. Like going back to your vision. If her and I have this vision that we want to raise friends for life, then I think, man, how do I do conflict with my friends? Wow, it looks different than I did when I was a kid, right? Like I really want to go resolve the conflict. I really don't want my friend to just say, you're right, you know, and we just fake hug. You know, I really want it to be like a real hug. I really want it to, you know, so if I want that, how do I raise friends for life? And if we start to get that picture. And so then when the kids are acting a certain way, I don't let the kids dictate the narrative. I approach the conflict in the way in which I would like them to see conflict, right? As an opportunity. I can come with a smile on my face instead of just frustration in my heart, all right? So these, I hope you can hold on to these. We have information there down below. Would love for you to connect with Parenting Legacy on Facebook and Instagram. If you want to go on the website, parentinglegacy.com, that's on there too. Would love for you to connect to us that way. But I hope you use this as a tool to just kind of debrief at the end of the night to say, hey, honey, can we talk about that thing that happened with the kids today? Can we go through these questions and kind of reassess how we see conflict and what we're trying to do with it? So some helpful resources to write down would be obviously connect to Parenting Legacy. But another great book in this arena that I think is really great is Dr. Laura Markham's book called Peaceful Parent, Happy Siblings. Peaceful Parent, Happy Siblings. And going back to her vision back there, the subtitle is How to Raise Friends for Life. So a lot of really great stuff on what to do in the midst of the conflict, okay? And especially as new babies come along, Markham has a lot of really great stuff on how to help the kids not see, because that's a conflict that a lot of times kids can't voice, is they see the new babies as, stealing the finite love that they believe is in the house. So now, man, if love is finite, which they think it is, then that kid's going to take that from me. So now I'm in competition with you. I want to really let the kid know it's not a competition. Love is infinite. It's not finite. So when we have this kid is going to expand our ability to love, not decrease our ability. But the kid will think but time is limited, and that's how I feel loved, and now you have less of it. So I've got to kind of expand the kid's understanding of that, of how he can experience love in different ways. Okay? All right, any questions? Yes. Let me get started with you, Sheridan. Okay, 5 minutes. Do it. Yes.
So growing up, there was kind of this unspoken rule that you deferred to the younger siblings.
Yes.
Like they got more passes than
yes.
I'm the oldest.
Yes.
and I find I'm sort of doing that with Ethan and Connor. So I have a 1-year-old and 4-year-old, and so I'll try to keep it succinct. But I find if Ethan actually has something in his hand, I won't let Connor take it. But I find that I'm giving sometimes I'll give more grace to Connor, with behavior or whatever, and I'm thinking about the big picture. That's almost unjust to Ethan. And so how do you work, especially with a 1-year-old who doesn't understand, his understanding?
I think the conflict you're experiencing is, there's going to be different expectations on Ethan, right? And that makes sense, right? Because he's been on the earth longer. Hopefully he's gotten more skills, right?
Yeah, okay.
But I still want to see any conflict between them. I may have different expectations on Ethan because he's older, because he's obviously not 1. He's verbal. He can talk to me, right? So there is different expectations, but I want to make sure Ethan knows that I'm not approaching him as the persecutor and Connor's the victim, right? Because then I'm going to raise a lot of animosity between the two, right? He's going to think that, whoever's the weaker one then gets mom's grace, right? So I want to be like, hey, grace is here for all of you, right? I'm here just to help all of you. So the skill you need right now, Ethan, is maybe the skill to be able to be patient in this moment because Connor's younger. It takes him a little time, right? What a great opportunity Connor's giving him to learn the skill of delayed gratification, right? Connor's just going to be more impulsive, right? But then Connor, I need to give him the words to be able to let Ethan know. So eventually, I would say, hey, Ethan, thank you for letting me play with that. I just need a couple more minutes and I'll give it to you. Okay. So routinely, it would be like telling Abby, hey, tell Brendan you would like that. And then she's like, but then he won't give it to me. Honey, if you just wait, let's just wait 2 minutes. What do you want to do for 2 minutes and just have fun? I bet he'll be done with that in 2 minutes, right? And so then we just taught her how to have fun while she's waiting, Yeah. And then Abby would be like, oh, yeah, actually in 1 minute. And then sometimes Brendan would see us having fun. He'd be like, hey, take it. I want to go do that thing you're doing, right? And so just all these different ways to experiment. If I'm in the prefrontal cortex, I don't think I have to make Connor give that back, or I don't think I have to. I'm just looking, what is the skill that he needs and what is the skill he needs? And how's this conflict give me an opportunity to teach him that, right? Okay? Yes?
Okay, so my oldest daughter is 5.
Okay.
My middle daughter is 3.5.
Okay.
I feel like the 3.5-year-old is always seeking approval from the 5-year-old,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the 5-year-old is mean.
Okay.
She's like the 3.5. She'll be like, "Oh, do you like my picture, Addie?" And I say, "No." Exactly.
So what does that tell you? What does that tell you? If the 5-year-old, if you guys heard that, the 5-year-old gets kind of annoyed and frustrated, almost resents that the 3.5-year-old looks up to them and wants their approval so much, right?
Yeah. And so I tell Abby, I'm like, that's rude. We don't talk like that.
No, but see, you're focusing on what you don't want to happen.
Okay.
Instead, focus on what you do want to happen, right? So you might say to the oldest, oh, it's really frustrating that she keeps asking that, and so you're wanting to let her know you don't want her to get your approval, okay? Maybe just, maybe another option to that would be just say, oh yeah, I like your picture, but I'm doing this other thing right now, right? Whatever it is you think you can do to try to get to I'm trying to think with your kid, I would want to answer that question, right? So she's here. So how do I know that? Because she's acting rude and acting like this, right? That comes from here, okay? So she doesn't feel loved. Somehow she thinks she's opposed to her little sister, right? You are not in opposition to her, right? But then you're not in opposition to her either. Do you see what I'm saying? So I want to invite her into, I need to answer that question. What is the question that she's trying to get answered by treating her sister that way, right? So I need to explore that with her, and I'll do that through empathy. So remember when she was little, if the kid pointed up and said something, you would say, is that Cheerios? Is that what you want? You would just take a guess. So in that way, just say, are you trying to say to her that it really frustrates you when she does that, right? And then the hope is she'll go, yeah, it does. It really annoys me when she's like, oh, what is it that annoys you about that, right? You just get inquisitive. Help her explore herself. What is it that she's trying to oppose? She's opposing something, okay? But I don't want to oppose her. Yes. Got to wrap it. Okay, I'm sorry. We can talk afterwards. All right, is that okay? Yeah, real quick. Yeah, so one last time. Yeah, so this is really easy to remember. Okay, so this is the brain stem, right? So this is back here, and this is am I safe? Okay, so fight, flight, or freeze. It's all about survival. Okay, so a kid is here if they are being aggressive. Like if they're physically aggressive, they're physically running away, or they're shutting down. You know, they're just completely not talking to you, right? So that means they don't feel safe. So then here is am I loved? It's the limbic system, okay? Am I loved? Basically, all they need here is understanding. I need to just empathize. Empathy is going to help you with all of these, but specifically here, think when your spouse comes home and has had a rough day, they tell you about the rough day, they just want you to empathize, right? Because they're here, okay? Shame is here. When I feel shame, I'm here. So do you see how shame keeps me hidden and isolated? I can't see the other side. I can only see mine. Then I want to give you to the prefrontal cortex, which is what can I learn? Okay, so I know I'm here, like in this situation she described, when I don't feel opposed to my daughter, I just see it as a cry for help. Oh, she just needs my help. Like she thinks that her 3.5-year-old is trying to do this thing. Oh, she's not. That's not her intent. She's just trying to tell you she loves you, right? And so if I can see that, that means I'm up here. If I'm like, oh God, you're so rude, then I'm here, right? Okay? All right, thank you guys. I appreciate your time. If you do have some questions, feel free to come and talk to me afterwards.